Hi everyone, welcome to Public Health Coaching YouTube, where we discuss all things personal development, professional development, and career development for public health professionals. On this channel, we provide you resources, skills you need to function in your various roles as a public health professional. So today we'll be talking about what are the 7 major skills a clinical research associate must have. But before we go there, let's discuss who are clinical research associates, clinical research assistants. They are people that help to oversee the research and make sure the research goes according to protocol. It follows certain ethic rules, guidelines. And clinical research associates are called monitors too. In case you are wondering, clinical research assistants, they are called monitors too. What do they do? Aside from monitoring and everything, clinical research assistants are those that represent the organizations. When they go, they are more like administrators. They are the engine for every research, for every study. They are the ones working, they are the ones in contact with various departments because they have all the resources. They have all the resources at their disposal. They have everything they need. They must be able to work with different people at any point in time because they are the ones that go to collect the data, and everything must be done according to guidelines, according to rules. You must follow protocol. You must follow protocol depending on protocol version of that study at that point in time. So let's go to the 7 skills. What are the 7 skills you must have as a clinical research associate? First, you must have your customer service skills should be top notch. As a clinical research assistant, sorry, I keep using associate. I'm talking about clinical research assistant. As a clinical research assistant, you must be ready to, work with others to build relationship. You are the face of the organization on the site. You are the person the sponsor runs to when he needs data. You are not just representing the organization. You are representing your sponsor. You are representing CRAs. You are working with different people. So you have to learn to work with others. You have to learn to associate. You have to learn to you have to learn to customer service has to do with handling issues, handling queries, handling everything. So your customer service skills should be top notch. If you want to work as a clinical research assistant, it's going to help you. It's going to make your job easier on the field when going to the site. Number 2, eagerness to learn from criticism. As a clinical research assistant, most times you are working with different people. You can have like up to 5 sites, depending on the study, depending on the organization. You can have 5 sites. You can have 10 sites. So I'm going to tell you, I'm not going to say from experience because I don't know what your experience is like. As a clinical research assistant, please, you have to be ready to learn because your managers, when they follow you to the field, they want to see what you're doing. They want to know that you know what you're doing. On the field too, the study coordinators, the principal investigators, you are going to be working with those people. You are going to be working with various doctors. You have to learn to take criticism. These people sometimes might not be in their best moods, and you still need to get your data. You need to, go through what they are doing. So you have to learn to take criticism. Do not take things too personal because the job you are doing requires details. It requires you to know what you're doing. So please, as a as a clinical research assistant, you have to learn. You have to be ready to learn. Do not take things personally. Wherever you're going to, there will always be new things. There will always be new guidelines. Do not stick to one way of doing things. As a clinical research assistant, most of the time, your organization and the new organization you're going to, they have ways they are doing their things. It's always different. Every organization has its own terms. Every organization, for example, in a place there's something called, in an organization there's something called study manager. In another place it can be called clinical trial lead. So you have to, what am I trying to say? As a research assistant, you have to be willing to learn new things as time goes on. And again, your protocol can change anytime. Number 3, as a clinical research assistant, you have to be able to, multitask. It is very important. Clinical research assistant and multitasking, they are like 5 and 6. Because you know why I say you have to learn to multitask. Sometimes you have sponsor sending you mails, asking you questions. Sometimes the site is asking you questions. Sometimes it's not just about the size. Sometimes your manager is asking you question at the same time. They are both asking you different question, maybe different field, different part of the research. You have to learn to multitask. As a clinical research assistant, multitasking is a skill you have to learn. It is very, very important. You have to be able to, when they're asking you for data, pull it out. When they're asking you to when you're responding to queries on the field, on the site, pull it out. So as a clinical research assistant, please, your multitasking skills should be top-notch. Number 4, as a clinical research assistant, you have to learn to collaborate. Yes, collaboration is the engine of your work, of what you do. Because if you, as a clinical research assistant, you work with doctors, you work with study coordinators, you work with principal investigators, you work with the sponsor, the organization you're working for different people. You have to learn to collaborate. The more you collaborate with others, the more respect you get. Number 5, you have to be able to coach others. You have to be coachable, and you have to learn to coach others. Why did I say that? As a clinical research assistant, you have to be able to coach others. What do I mean? Sometimes they will have new people, because for a study lasts for required number of years. Like sometimes a study can last for 4 years, 5 years. As a clinical research assistant, maybe you have been the one handling this study maybe for years. There are new people that will come on board. You have to learn, you have to coach others, you have to transfer the knowledge and skills to them. So when they come to meet you, you have to be able to, adjust. You have to be coachable. You have to be able to coach others. It is a skill you have to learn as a clinical research assistant. Number 6, you have to be ready to, as a clinical assistant, you have to be ready to follow ethics, even when not under scrutiny. You have to follow. Do not go through any shortcut, because whatever shortcut you pass through, it will be found out along the lines. As a clinical research assistant, don't, even when you're not under scrutiny, because ethics and clinical trials, they have the same side of the coin. You have to learn to, always do the right things, always follow guidelines. Most of the time. 90% of the time, your job has to do with regulations and everything. So you have to learn to follow ethics. It is very, very important. It is a rule. Don't try to create a shortcut for yourself. Anytime you create a shortcut, most times it might invalidate the research work, and you don't want to do something that is going to affect the research you have been conducting for years. And one thing about research is that data is very important. You don't want to toy with that. You don't want to tamper with that, because once data is tampered in any research work, is as good as not doing anything. And on the long run, the research can be stopped. Yes, it can be stopped. Whether you started years ago, it does not matter. When it comes to ethics, human subjects, those things are very important. Please do not try to go for any shortcuts. Number 7, as a clinical research assistant, you have to learn adaptability. Adaptability in what sense? Most times, guidelines, rules are changing. We already said it. For a study, they change protocols. Protocols can change, maybe 3 or 4 times. You have to be able to adapt to changing guidelines, because as a research assistant, that's why I said your multitasking skill must be top-notch. Adapting to change, it is very, very important, because things change along the line. Let me set an example for you. For example, you conducted a PSV for maybe a site, and you found out some things and all that, and there are some things that are supposed to be done. You are a clinical research assistant, and you sent this PSV probably to your sponsor or to your manager. Your sponsor can decide that, okay, they have changed 1 or 2 things, maybe in the protocol, and you are not aware of it. Maybe, probably, I'm not saying it's good for you not to be aware, but sometimes, you have so much workload that you can't even keep abreast. Even your manager can skip some major things. So as a research assistant, you have to learn to be able to adapt to new changes. Because as time goes on, submitting your report on time and everything does not guarantee there won't be errors. Sometimes, your managers might skip the error. So you have to learn to adapt to changing guidelines. Even your protocols or everything, your ethics can decide that tomorrow they want to change this and this. So I want you to, those skills, adaptability skills for clinical research assistants, it's a must. It is a must, because when conducting a study, most times you might use a volunteer, you know, depending on what your study is about, you know, depending on what the sponsor wants. Please, you have to learn to adapt to people. Then I'm going to add this one bonus point. As a clinical research assistant, you have to learn to follow through with your promises. What do I mean? When you go to sites, sometimes you have to get there on time. Whenever you schedule, whatever dates you put in for your maybe required PSV or your SIV, site initiation visit. PSV is pre-study visit, site initiation visit. Whatever you put there, whatever time you have scheduled with the site, always follow through. It is very, very important. You know, it shows that you know what you are doing. And as a clinical research assistant, I'm going to add, this is just going to make 12 points. The organizational as a clinical research assistant, every skills I have discussed so far is what they pay. As a clinical research assistant, you make up to 120,000 per year, depending on the company, whether it's a CRO, whether it's a pharmaceutical company. You make up to 100,000 a year. So it's worth the skills. Take your time. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode, today's teaching on clinical research. And please share, like, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Have a blessed day. Bye.